I'm Samuel Williams. I am the son of John Williams, 15-year-old son of John Williams, and the brother of the foul-mouthed Esther Williams. Never had I heard a noise so frightening and disturbing as the one I heard in the early morning of February 29th. 'Tis true that the darkest hour is right before the dawn, and on this morning it was the darkest hour in all my 15 years. They burst through the doors with hatchets held high. They were threatening and menacing and injecting fear and mayhem into our home. I was dragged by my hair out of my bed and into the hall. My father lay beaten and naked on the ground. The Indians had their prize, but what of myself and my family? What horror came next will haunt my soul for the rest of my life. Firstly, the savages grabbed our Negro caretaker, Parthia, and cut her down. Then they cut down my brother, 6-year-old John Jr., and 6-week-old Jerusha. I thought for sure I would be next, but to my relief, they made spare. The rest of my family, including my foul-mouthed sister, was dragged outside the home and lined up to where I have no idea. To my horror, the town burned with the bright, fiery heat of 1,000 suns, but it didn't burn as hot as my hatred for the red men who murdered my family.
Whoa, indeed.
Okay. I'm John Williams' wife, and
Eunice.
evidently no one thinks about me. I don't know. But please remember that I gave birth like 6 weeks ago, and I'm going to blame part of my interpretation here on the adjustment.
Postpartum depression
Yeah.
in the face of a real crisis.
Okay. So, my memory of this morning is both cloudy and vivid. I thought it was almost morning when John and I heard the watchman yell out the warning. John prepared the pistol. He had to protect us. He knew an attack would come. I tried to secure the children first. They were waking up. I heard screaming. Shots were fired, men yelling. Then they came in the house. They, the Indians, were strong. John was restrained. I called out for him, but my home became flooded with Indians. They were after my children, my family. They restrained me. The Indians held me. I saw Parthena protect the new baby and John Jr., but she was immediately slain. Seconds later, they took them, the baby, okay. Now I could only hear the cries of my other children. I was weak, not prepared. The Indians knew what they wanted. They insulted us, threatened to kill us, but we followed their commands. We knew that struggling, resisting would only endanger us. I had been bracing myself at all times for death. I'm not the minister. He's the target. But soon I began to feel calm. They began to untie John. They pushed me toward the room with my other children, and I was allowed to dress them and myself. Now I felt a hope that this attack was maybe just a message or a warning, and maybe they realized that they need us for their own village. They need a leader like John. Maybe they want us to help them.
Wow. Two really,
So I've gone to shock. I'm not really in touch
two
with
great
reality.
touches in that. The one that Parthenia was trying to protect the children. We don't know that, but that's nice. And the sort of the hope and the despair. Maybe they need us. You know, trying to make a lemonade out of a lemon. I am just astonished at you guys. I mean, some of these stories are heart-wrenching. They're amazing. Who's left? Anybody? Everybody? Come on.
It's the same story. Actually, Jenna had the woman in the Stebbins house, and I think we kind of saw it similarly. So
Well, let's see.
Yeah. So I did a before, and then before that happened, and then after. Located in the northwest corner of town, we knew they were coming for us next. I'm determined to protect this home, this family, and Deerfield. We know that our home will stand up to their attempts to fire upon us because of its sturdy, strong nature of being made of brick, located within the stockade, the good fortune of the protection of soldiers. Whatever attempts they will make will not fall. We can only imagine the carnage of the rest of the community and refuse to fall to this massacre. And then after, when they finally came for us, we were prepared. We had been weakened by the fighting in the rest of Deerfield and had ample time to prepare. They approached, encircling the home, expecting to get us with their fire. The women and children, frightened and desperate to survive, screamed, prayed, hid, anything they could conceive of to maintain the faith to survive and save themselves. We exchanged blows back and forth for close to 2 hours. My strength started to fade, but my desperation and desire for survival grew stronger by the minute. Finally, quiet, silence falls, and I realize they have retreated. Our breath is held, hearts racing, waiting for the attack to continue. But it looked like they backed down. Then our prayers remained unanswered as we hear them approaching once more. The attempt to fire Ye House continues, but we succeed in taking them down. At least 4 men fall of our brutal, savage enemies. Quiet but not calm finally arrived, indicating their retreat from our immediate surroundings. We cannot feel secure knowing the destruction and devastation that surrounds us in Deerfield. Clearly, as they typically do, they will take their living victims captive. Where, we can only imagine. It remains to be determined the extent of the loss we in Deerfield have faced. I cannot say whether living to see the end is a blessing or a curse, knowing the loss we will continue to endure here, the fear we live in of our enemy's savage ways.
It's excellent. Was it a blessing or a curse to survive? It's an open question. But people sure fought hard to live. We got everybody? Simon. Who? Oh, he's a really interesting guy. Mehuman.
Mehuman, Hinesdale. This individual ends up being captured twice, and the book picks up the story at the time of his second abduction. He's on the field one day, and all of a sudden, then he's not, because the Indians come out of the forest and take him. So I take it from there. This is a retrospective view.
Do you guys remember the story of, he is the guy who years after the Deerfield massacre, his grandfather was taken, he was taken in the Deerfield massacre, right? He was a captive. His wife was a captive in the Deerfield massacre, and here it is, 5 years later, he's out in the fields, and he thinks everything's okay, and he's taken. Okay.
Yeah, so here he is, thinking once he returns after many years. Little could I have anticipated 5 years after the treacherous destruction of our settlement that I would once again be summoned by fate to undergo yet a more severe trial and tribulation. I was captive once and would be captive yet again. I had lost family and friends at Bloody Brook, and I had managed to survive captivity for 2 years at that time in Canada. 2 years it took my enemies to release and return me to the company of my people and the peace of my farm. And then without warning, I am captured again and separated forcefully from all that I had come to know and love one more time. I dared not imagine what would happen to those left behind. In Canada, the French and their savages tried to extract information which I successfully avoided and resisted. Intrigue and alliances briefly gave me the hope of escape, but soon I was returned to their hands. Prison was never so bitter, it never is as bitter as when you imagine, however briefly, the taste of freedom. How or why it was that I was finally sent to France and then to England, I do not know. But surely the hand of Providence had silently and wisely guided my travels and gave me protection. I cannot avoid understanding even more that there surely must be a reason and purpose to our presence here, and this fills me with even greater resolve to remain.
It's excellent. 2 things about that. The why does God do this to me? There must be a reason God has that I'm being captured, that especially the